Welcome. If you're new here, welcome back. If you've been with me before, to the 8th concession, our little homestead in Southern Ontario, Zone 5B. My name is Natalie. Well, it's the end of the year again. It seems not very long ago that I did an end of the year video for last year, and here it's rolled around again. It's New Year's Eve here, and it's a time for a little bit of reflection. The video I did last year around New Year's Eve, I mentioned how I love the New Year's, how I love the possibilities of starting the year with goals and plans. And so I rewatched the video and I thought, oh, it'll be great to do a follow-up video as to what we accomplished. Oh boy, it was kind of hard to watch because some of the things didn't get accomplished, but we had such a busy year. So the question is, what exactly did we do all year? Well, I'm here to do a recap, tell you what the plans were, whether we got them accomplished or not, and why. So let's go for a little walk around the property. It is mild here. We had a white Christmas. We had lovely snow, but it was still warm enough that the roads were good for traveling, for my married children to come, which was nice. But as you can see behind me, it looks more like spring than New Year's Eve, but we'll take what we get. So it's good for a walk around anyway because we can see everything. Let's go. The first thing I mentioned on my last year's video was the pond. Our plan was to rehabilitate the pond, get a path going all the way around it, sort of maintain it, and keep the invasive reeds called Phragmites down. That didn't happen. Now, we did make a start on it, but the weather was really against us. We had another wet, cool summer, and let me show you the pond. If you compare this with last year's video, you can see that the water is actually even higher than it was last year, which is hard to believe because it was actually really high. But this is all flooded. Down at the other end of the pond, this tree here was actually on the edge of the pond. And now you can see how much farther the water has gone there and over there. So what did we get accomplished around the pond? Well, we did have a start over here clearing this out. You can see that it's a lot clearer. So part of the way around this way and part of the way at the beginning on the other side, but we didn't manage to go all the way around. Down at this end of the pond, we did some other work. This arbor here was the arbor my husband built for when our daughter got married on our property a few years ago. And we moved it over here by the pond. I wanted to have, a climbing rose on it, but it was not secured in the ground and it was leaning. So one of the jobs Craig did, and I did a video on this, is he secured it in the ground. We finished off the back of it and restained it. So that was a fairly big job. And then I'll show you what we did on the ground around it. So you can see that while we didn't clear out around the pond, we did clear out this area here. And I planted some plants that like wet soil here. So I actually have, right here is, not that one, this little tree here with the blue ribbon on it is a weeping willow, which I love. And this here is, I think it's called a turtle head. And I've planted, I forget even what else, wild bergamot I think I planted. I think I did a whole video on the things. This is a lilac. Whoops. No, right here, there's a lilac. So there are some beautiful plantings. There's some iris over there, pencil iris, and cardinal flowers. So this spring, it should be really lovely over here. You can see still a bit muddy here, but again, it was just so wet. And here are my roses. I did manage to plant a climbing rose right here. And I'm going to add some trellising going up. Let me just move over here. Going up the arbor for it to weave in and out of. But we just planted it last year. It's doing really well. I can see green on it. I can see green and even some buds coming because the weather has been unseasonably warm, but I can see that it's going to come back beautifully. So we did not get the path all the way around the pond. However, we did get part of it cleared up over in this end, and this part cleared, the arbor secured and fixed, and some beautiful plantings for spring in the ground. I'm calling that a win. The next thing I talked about in my video from last year was the garden. There are 5 raised beds here, and I wanted to put the last 3 in and sort of finish off the structure of this garden. But as you can see, that didn't get done. Part of the problem was, again, the weather. It was so wet and cold in the spring that it was very difficult to work back there. And then time just got away from us. And the price was still pretty hefty, so I decided to put it off for 1 more year. However, I did get a new gate. Now, at the time I made the other video, I didn't realize in what bad shape the other gate was. It actually, in the spring, when I went to open it, it fell apart in my hands. So I wanted something that wasn't wood, because we're trying to make this place not so labor intensive as we age. So I thought a metal fence would be better, or a metal gate anyway. The fence is still wood, but a metal gate with a nice top on it, and I'm so happy with it. It too, like the arbor, is firmly and properly secured in the ground, so it shouldn't shift even with the ice and the freezing and thawing, and I'm really happy with it. So that was a win. The garden was not, and it's back on the list for this year, hoping that we can finally get those last 3 beds in. The next thing I talked about in the video was having my greenhouse built. Now, we did not buy a prefab kit. We had materials to build our own. I mentioned in that last video that we had bought a whole bunch of 2x2 foot window greenhouse glass panes, and this was from some of the greenhouses farther south of here in southern Ontario. It used to be a lot of tobacco farms, and they had a lot of greenhouses, and now a lot of them are just falling apart and people are selling off the glass and or structure. So we've had the glass for a long time, and then we've had the brick for the bottom for a long time, because we took down some things in the lower level of our house that had a lot of brick inside. So we had the materials, it's just, again, the time and the money to build. But let me show you what has happened. Ta-da! The beginnings of my greenhouse are in, and I can't even tell you how excited I am. So these are the bricks I was talking about that we had around. They are ready. That is the height of the little knee wall. And Craig is actually working even today on starting to do the framing to put the glass up. He doesn't think it'll take too long. I mean, it's warm enough that we can still work on it in the end of December, early January. So we'll see how long that lasts. There's a chance I may have it up and running for this year's seedlings, but I'm not sure. I am excited though that some progress has been made, and I love the look of it. I love the size of it. I just dream about using it. So I will do another video sort of detailing the building of the greenhouse. It should go fairly quickly now, I think, now that the brickwork is done. Here's hoping. All the snow that we had for Christmas has gone with just a ton of rain. You see it's kind of frozen a little bit. Icy, but it's wet everywhere. The last 2 projects that I mentioned in the video are kind of interconnected, and one of them was to turn the end of the driveway here into a proper patio with a retaining wall, and the other was the conversion of the garage into a library office. Well, that didn't happen for an entirely different reason, and I can't blame that one on the weather. What happened was we were also going to put on an addition on the back of the house right here, and it was going to be a sunroom. And because this is conservation land, we have to jump through extra hoops. We don't just jump through city planning hoops, we have to jump through conservation hoops as well. And I don't want to get into all the details, but it was soul crushing that the Conservation Authority said they would not approve an addition to our house. It has to do with the possibility of a 100-year flood, and the room wouldn't be high enough above that flood level, even though the house itself is technically not there. These are their guidelines. There was nothing we could do about it. They shut us down so firmly that, other than going through some sort of appeal with lawyers and hydrologists, where we still might not win, we had to shelve that idea. So now, what were we going to do? It was so disappointing. I can't even explain how disappointing it was. We wanted the extra room. I wanted the light. I wanted the view of our backyard and our garden. So we had to really shift gears. We had to do some thinking about what we were going to do, because we can't go against those rules. We can't just go ahead and build it anyway, because if they ever found out, they could just make us rip it down. And can you imagine hundreds of thousands of dollars down the drain as they tell you to rip it down? So I think what we're going to do is we're going to switch up the garage conversion and have to sort of make that a dual purpose area, because we're not going outside the envelope of our house. Conservation doesn't really care. And they did say we could build a structure away from the house, about 160 square feet. Big deal. But that actually is what the greenhouse is, so that is why we were confident to go ahead and build the greenhouse. But, you know, dealing with bureaucracy is just something so frustrating. And although we knew when we bought this property that this was kind of the concession we had to make with buying this land, I talked in my very first video, if you want to go back and watch that, about how we acquired our land when you don't have like all the money in the world. Where do you find some land where you can homestead, and how you have to usually find marginal land that has some sort of restriction on it or some sort of problem with it. And for us, that restriction was the conservation status. So we knew we were going to have to deal with that, but we did think they would be reasonable or logical. Apparently that's not a requirement. So that didn't get started. It actually got squashed. We had to pivot and try and find a new solution so we can be happy living in our house here without breaking any of the rules. And because we didn't start on that, we also didn't start on this, because what we do now is going to affect where the patio will go. It might wrap around the house now, so we didn't want to start building the patio because everything else had changed. And so we have to kind of regroup and make a firm plan as to what's going to happen. So that's the reason that didn't happen. What did we get accomplished? Well, we got another project done that we hadn't planned to do, but something that I'm very happy about. Let me show you. Over here by the slug hut is where I have my raspberries. And down here are my blackberries. And you can see I've got some posts in, and there are wire trellises there to keep the plants, give them some support, keep them off the ground, so that it makes it easier to mow and trim, and it just looks neat and tidy. So that was, it wasn't a huge job, but it took time, because digging in the soil around here, it's less soil and more just rocks. So it was a bit of an ordeal to get them down, get them secured, and then do the wire. So we did get that done. I also saw in the other video that we had the basic structure of our new protected chicken run up. But as you can see, we added hardware cloth along the bottom. We have really high predator pressure over here. Mink and weasels and coyotes and foxes. So we built this. It wasn't quite finished at the time of the last video, but it is now, including their own private access into the main coop. So this metal door here, the metal door here slides in right there, and so we can close it off and keep them secured in the main coop when we need to, in case there's bad weather or some sort of disaster. But other than that, they have this lovely big, it's about 40 feet long and about 10 feet high. 10 feet high, sorry. 10 feet wide, about 7 feet high And it has these ribs up here so we can actually put like a tarp over it for some shade in the summer, which we'll probably do. And Craig reinforced it. That actually goes down into the ground, the hardware cloth, about a foot. So it was a lot of digging. So that got done, and that was good for the chickens. So there you go, the recap of our plans and goals for last year, what we accomplished, what we didn't, and why. So we did get the arbor done and fixed in that area. Part of the pond was rehabilitated. The chicken coop, the extra run was finished, and the little tunnel was built. I have a new garden gate. I have the beginnings of my greenhouse, and we have new plans for the inside renovation. That really knocked us back quite a bit, I have to tell you. We were pretty devastated with that whole process, and the process itself to be turned down took a long time. But anyway, this year, so what are our plans this year? Well, we're going to continue working around the pond. If it's a bit drier this year, we'll be able to get around more, and then it'll be easier to maintain it than to get that initial, path around it built. And I'm going to put down some flagstones under that arbor, so make it a nice path down to the pond. Still hoping for those last 3 beds of my garden. I think we just might bite the bullet and order the concrete blocks and get them in. The greenhouse should be finished, and then the new renovation inside hopefully will be nailed down. Hopefully we can get it started. We might shift and work on putting in a new kitchen. But those things are kind of tied together, because once you start one renovation in the house, the flooring connects here and the walls connect there. So I'm almost afraid to say what we're going to work on in the house, because it's still a little bit up in the air depending on planning and materials and time, but something inside. By the end of the year, let's hope I can show you something exciting inside and something exciting outside. But in the meantime, we are still going to enjoy our property. I did still plant a full garden, processed and preserved the food that came out of it. We have, of course, family obligations and parties and festivals and things to host here on our property. Exciting things coming up this year. So even though we didn't quite manage everything we wanted to, we still worked really hard. And we have to remember, we should all remember to congratulate ourselves on the stuff we do get done, because life is never straightforward and there are always obstacles and things eating away at your time and money. So to get some things done and still enjoy where you are, I think that is the biggest goal we achieved this year, and we're really looking forward to 2025. I wish everybody watching a very happy new year, happy, healthy new year with lots of fun, adventures, excitement, and joy. Bye for now.